Good morning, good afternoon, London News here in Melbourne and across to the London News studio in Kidderminster in UK. And we got Dominic over there. Good morning, Dominic. It's evening time here in Melbourne. It's almost 9 o'clock, 5 to 9 and 5 to 10 in the UK, correct?
Yes, indeed. Good night or good morning from me, and good night there, isn't it? Yes. There we
Sorry,
go.
we'll work it out in the end. It takes a bit of time getting used to it. But it's amazing, the technology. So what's happening over there in the UK? What we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about a few things with similarities, because we all believe what's happening here is not happening elsewhere, but it's happening everywhere. So it's this one world organization, or they call it, I don't know what the heck they call it, but it's a government or something. So what's happening over there in the supermarkets, Dominic?
Okay. Just talking from experience, what I've noticed, just one particular supermarket, big supermarket leader in our country, they've put up some electric barriers on your entrance and exit of the supermarket. I think they've been installed for about 5 weeks now, and they've got them on every single checkout, and they've got speakers built in, and they're automated. Well, the ones coming in and out the shop are at the moment, but the other ones aren't electrified. So I being a curious kind of person, I went home and looked into Google and put in exactly what I saw: supermarket electric barriers, big supermarket. We won't name the supermarket, but it came back with they are trialing it somewhere in the country for palm recognition for future use of that way of shopping. It's very similar to the Amazon shopping. So I don't know exactly where they're trialing it, but it is what I read under trial, and they're going to give incentives apparently for people to get their palm readied by giving them vouchers for discounts off food, etc., etc. If that comes into fruition, I don't know. It's just what I've read, but it looked pretty authentic. What I looked up. I suppose time will tell, and we'll find out in the near future. Might, don't know.
Yeah, the same thing here. I went into a shopping center or one of the big stores as well, and they stopped taking cash. They've only got one outlet for cash now, and when people go through the automation one, they have face recognition there, so that you actually can see yourself on the screen, and it's recording everything. So they're going to do away with cash. It's gone. If the 15-minute city is happening, it's not just like the Agenda 2030, but it's happening now, and they're not going to give up. But the thing is, I reckon about 80% of the people just have given up. They don't care anymore. So it'll go to the stage where every little freedom you have is gone. You remember, you were born in the 70s. You would be the last generation that played in the street. You remember
Oh,
the old days in England? I remember when I was a constable in the 1960s, late 60s, that
absolutely.
is. We used to play football with the kids in the street, but nobody plays in the street anymore. So the changes have gone. You remember playing in the street as a kid?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, fond memories. I mean, used to get up in the morning. I think my favourite hobby at the time was making go-karts and then covering them over with a bed sheet or something, so it really looked like a Formula One. And then going around knocking on all your friends' doors. They'd come round and you'd unveil it, and you'd spend the rest of the day throwing yourself off it and just having general fun and coming back on the night filthy. And there's none of this interaction with computers and distractions that we have this modern day life. You're out there exercising and having fun and actually integrating with other people. This seems to be a dying thing there.
And what's really buggers me a bit is the fact, I don't know, I must ask you about this in England, but here, if a family, an average family, cannot afford to get a dog for their kids. Because one time when my kids were running around, everybody had a dog that had pups, and they send a message home, and the kids all had dogs. And now, even for a secondhand dog from one of these dog homes, you pay $800 or $900, and a new dog is, you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000, $5,000, $6,000. There's the same thing happening in England in that score as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember we used to have a vet in Kidderminster, Norman Simpson, his name was, the best vet in the world if he ever watches this. And if I do see him in town, I always remind him because we remember each other. Now, I had not so long ago, we're talking probably very early 90s. I had a couple of cats and I had to call the vet out on a Sunday. This is only the 1990s. Yes, I'll be there in half an hour, he said. Took the cats to the vets, and I think he charged us to treat both cats with injections, medicines, and everything, 60 to 70 pounds. Now, to have a pet these days, you've got to have a big bank account because they wouldn't even charge you that to open the door to let you in the vets. I mean, it's got to be about £100 just to go, yes, I'm going to look at your vet and have a look at it before they've touched it. It's just ridiculous, the expense. Yeah, so yeah, it's an expensive game now, and so is a lot of things. You know, they they want us to have electric cars. I mean, come on, who a working man, your general working person, people, right, cannot afford an electric car. It's just basic fact. You know.
I know, and if you have one, you can't afford to run it either because of. I think you'd have to be anyway. We won't get into electric cars because we love them really, but the reality is, it's not going to happen. But what's that thing about the dogs that really annoys me because every kid should grow up with a dog. It's really sad. But anyway, the food thing situation is. I was watching some documentaries in America about the eggs are disappearing over there. So all the staple foods we had one time was we had rabbits. People used to eat rabbits, and they've got rid of our rabbits. They said they were digging up farmers' fields, and what a load of rubbish. And then the blackberries, all the mums and dads went out collecting blackberries and the kids to make jam. Life has been the normal life for human beings, men and women, has been removed, and a new system added in, a one world government system or something that is nothing more than a fictional world, and it's pretty sad.
For sure. I mean, we went shopping last night, and the latest, I don't know if it's happening over in Australia, but there's no vegetables now. You know, there's the empty shop displays with cardboard boxes, just empty. There's no tomatoes, lettuce, anything to do with making like a Caesar salad sandwich. You know, it's just not there. You got the bacon. Yeah, that's the latest thing that they've got going is the lack of fresh fruit and veg. Well, not so much fruit, it's vegetables.
Yeah, and it's basically it's all, well, shall we say it BS? Because there's plenty of stuff out there. The supermarkets are capitalizing on these shortages. The farmers are being rubbed out. It's a long story. Yeah, something else, Dominic. Here I was talking to a chappie who's got a factory, makes furniture. Now they're having great difficulty getting some of the timber. And I noticed on the building sites that used to be completed in a say 6 months to a year are taking years to build. And I've asked some of the tradies on there, what's going on? How come it's taken so long to build this place? And they said, difficulty getting material, and we cannot get tradespeople. In fact, we can't get workers. Now, I don't know whether here in Australia, whether they're getting paid to stay home like they were during that fun thing we had called a pandemic, whether they're being paid to stay at home. Now, you're involved in the building industry in England. What's the situation in relation to both of them? Are they difficulty getting staff, difficulty getting materials? That's something else we need to share.
Yeah. As for materials, we do have this particular site that I'm on now. We have the odd little moment where we have to wait for things or they run out and we have to wait a couple of days for those things to come in. But in general, I think things have, in my eyes, improved slightly. It wasn't as bad as it was after the fun time we had. There was a struggle there. You know, there was a lot of waiting time, especially for roofing tiles. But you mentioned trade. I mean, I heard little Chinese whispers about, you know, that there's a lot of people there that are pretty sort of like this about what they're doing and stuff, and with the way the government's running things. and you hear in their other breath saying that, there's no one actually coming along to actually get trained. They're just put off with the whole shambles of things that, the way things are going at the moment, that they don't really want to go into the trade. I mean, that's just what I've been picking up on the radar. So there is definitely a lack of trade. Materials getting pretty difficult to come a hold of, that's for sure. But the particular site I'm on now, it seems to be ticking over okay.
I
I can't read.
I remember back in the 60s when they used to tell us the English were too lazy to work, so that's why they had all these people coming in to do the jobs that English wouldn't do. And we have the same problem. Nothing's changed. It's the same thing here now, and there actually, believe it or not, the Queensland police, and I think you'll probably find Melbourne and the other states will follow suit. Apparently, there's a shortage of men and women who want to be police, and so they have to go overseas to get them. And I was looking at in Ireland recently, and I seen some Chinese Garda Síochána in Dublin. So it's a changing world, and it's I don't know. It goes around in circles, and of course, in the end, it'll all what they say. Usually, the stuff floats to the top, and it'll go back to normal one day. But we live in a very strange and unpredictable world. This is just our first Dominic, it's interesting, and you did ask, I think, we chatted before about what's happening with the Common Law Court. Well, the Common Law Court is running pretty big. We have an office, and we've got a lot of volunteers in it. I think we've got 17 deputy sheriffs, and what we've stopped a lady who has been forced to have a smart meter. Now, I don't know why she didn't want the smart meter, but she didn't want it. She had a lock on her gate, and they were going to cut it off. So 3 deputy sheriffs went down there with a camera, and the electricity company said, "Okay, we give up. We're not going to bother you," and they went away. But they would have forced this woman to do it. Now, a lot of councils here in Australia are a different kettle of fish they are in the UK. There are private companies here masquerading as local government, and there is no local government, but they have taken on an enormous amount of pseudo-monious responsibilities and laws, and they forced them in. So the Common Law Court has stopped them. We have beaten them in court on a few occasions, and the CEOs of these corporations will be taken to a Common Law Court and even to a grand jury beforehand and prosecuted through the process. Now, you live in Kidderminster, which is a shire, and you have to remember that the term sheriff comes from the old days when the shires had the head of the village was a reef. So he become the shire reef, hence the term sheriff. And that's gone on. Alfred the Great cemented common law throughout the country when the Vikings all became Christians and stopped fighting. So why don't you there in Kidderminster set up a common law court? We will help. We will help you here in Australia in anything you want. So anyway, what do you think about organising a sheriff? You just got to get yourself elected, and then we'll tell you what to do after that.
Well, yeah, I suppose I'm going to put it out there to anyone watches this that's local. I suppose they could just, if they're interested, they could contact me. I'll leave an email address, contact point, or leave a comment in the comments panel. Put it out there, see what the people think. And sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? We could always do with a bit of extra help on the streets, sorting matters out, legal matters.
Yeah, well, common law, you see, is common to everybody, and it is the law of the land. Statute law only applies to persons. So if you consider yourself a person, which at law is a deceased estate, the law only applies to persons, not to man and woman. And if anybody in England or the UK in general can show me that man and woman, when it comes to statute laws, there doesn't exist. So a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of things need to be brought back onto a level playing field, which you won't find in the court. And the only thing, look, the Berlin Wall didn't fall down. It was men and women who knocked it down, brought it down with the help of a few other very powerful men and women. Yeah, by all means, set up a common law court in the UK. I'm sure there's the common law court in the UK with John Smith, and I know that John is still involved in it, but they don't do court cases anymore, but they're doing some other work, which in my opinion is really good, and good on them. So there's no reason why you can't do it in Kidderminster. Now, first of all, what you need to do is to put, if you want to be a sheriff, you put yourself up for election. You have a small election. There won't be that much in it. You know, like a guy up in Townsville, the local group up there. We don't have groups in common law. We have gatherings to reach to get a lawful closure to a problem, right? So they got together. They voted him in as a sheriff elect. He came down to Melbourne when we had a very large gathering, maybe 70 or 80 people here. We picked a jury for the case we're running that day, but he took his oath, raised his right hand, took his oath, and got sworn in as a sheriff. And then he signed the paperwork, and the jury of 12 signed to say that they ratified his appointment. So he went back to Townsville, and now he appoints a few more people. They're going to set up some courts up there to fight the system, which is pretty rotten. So there's no reason anywhere in the world. I think over in Ireland they're doing it as well, and I know that somebody in Northern Ireland was setting up a common law court. But the most important thing is there's only one sheriff and deputies, and there's some of the other ones that are running around with heaps of sheriffs and stuff. You must do it under the common law court rules, which John Smith set up, and there's no other way. Anything other way is wrong, and it will come back and bite you.
One that's actually, I guess, like a magistrate's court. There isn't a jury there, is there? When you go to a magistrate's, doesn't the judge on his own just make up the decision? You got no jury of 12 there. That's very strange, I find.
Well, in England, they used to have three magistrates, a magistrate and two not stipendary magistrates. They were, I forget what they called them anyway. They had three because no one man can judge another. They've done away with juries worldwide because expediency. So, I mean, it's really wrong. No one man can sentence another man to life in jail. It's crazy. And the statute system is a fictional system. So anyway, perhaps we should before we go, we talk about something more interesting than fiction. We live in a fictional world. Look at us. Our first effort at, well, it's not actually, we did it before, but what we're going to do for maybe next week, we're going to talk to Ireland and perhaps some other country at the same time. And we'll try and get a discussion going to find out what's happening in all these countries at the same time, rather than we here in Melbourne or you there in the UK thinking, oh, it's only happening here, but it's not. It's a worldwide problem. It's a worldwide disease. It's a worldwide phenomenon, which the people need to know about it. Anyway, Dominic, thanks for coming down under from London News in Kidderminster. Great chatting to you, and we'll catch up with you, please God. We're all still alive next week. Bye for now.
Bye then. Bye.
Bye.